What is up, everybody, and welcome to the first edition of Lovely Loners, in which we are taking a look at the Decepticon 3 from Custom Knife Factory, sent to us by Sid. Check out his Instagram there. He's super awesome for sending me this. He's also the one that sent me the Pepiaka spinner from Custom Knife Factory that you saw in the spinner video, and he did send me another knife as well, which was very nice. Thank you, Sid. Super much appreciate it. I knew that the Decepticon was not a knife that I would purchase for myself. It just doesn't quite have the design aesthetics that I look for knives in my collection. So when he offered to send me his, I was super delighted because it's definitely something I've wanted to try out. I really like Custom Knife Factory products. As you guys may have seen by now, I do have the Custom Knife Factory Sequoia version 2.0, which is one of my absolute favorites. I just got it recently as of recording this video, but it's been one of my grails forever, and I knew that I would love it, and I absolutely do. It's fantastic. So Custom Knife Factory products so far have a 100% win rate with me, but obviously I've only tried 3 of them now, I suppose. So anybody that wants to send me anything from Custom Knife Factory, go ahead and do so. But I just knew that the designs from Alexei Konigan, sorry for butchering that like an idiot, but he designs the Decepticon. I think he also designs the Rattata. I could be wrong about that. I didn't actually check, but they're just very similar design language, so I suspect that he's a designer for them, just as Anton Malashev designed both the Sequoia and this Pepiaka. You can actually see a lot of the similar design language. It's the exact same blue, similar just design cues pretty much everywhere. Custom Knife Factory is kind of known for using a lot of the same designers. Malashev and Konigan are definitely big ones for some of the most well-known knives. But there's plenty of other guys' names if you just look through their website, kind of look at each knife that they've offered and the name that's listed as the designer. But the Decepticon 3 is a deceptively cool knife. No, I'm sorry. I should see myself out. I was actually saving that joke for later to say that it has a deceptive solidity, which is, kind of remarkable when you consider the design of the knife. It kind of appears that it's going to be, I don't know, not flimsy. You wouldn't expect to spend $1,000 and get something that's flimsy. That's the other thing about this knife is the price. But it has a surprising solidity that when you do close the knife, when you let it drop close like that, you do get a little bit of vibration through these, I don't know, most forward scales, I guess if you want to call them. But other than that, the whole knife feels remarkably solid for just how thin everything is. The frame is thin, these scales or whatever are thin. The blade is fairly thin when compared to something especially like the Sequoia. I mean, the Sequoia is almost twice the thickness. It's insane. So it's just an overall very thin knife, and so I was expecting some of the qualities that come along with a thin knife, and none of them are present here. So the Decepticon is deceptively solid, is what I will definitely say. Now, this blade, the action on it's incredible, but I'll get to that in a minute. This blade, it's I believe a hawkbill. I'm gonna show my naivete again. I didn't look that up. I'm pretty sure this is a hawkbill blade. Kind of looks like a hawk with this hole in it. With the kind of looks like an eye. It's very cool. This blade shape is not particularly something that I would prefer from an aesthetic standpoint, but I have to say that the way this whole knife is designed in conjunction with this blade, this thing would make a great slicer. Now, it's not my knife, and you could trade it for a down payment on a car. So I'm not going to go get a bunch of use out of this. Yes, that's right, Sid. I'm not going to beat on your knife. But so I'm not really going to get use out of this. So a lot of this is just my interpretation of the knife. But I interpret this blade to be an excellent slicer because it is fairly thin. You can see on the spine right about here is the actual thickness of the blade, but it's very thin. It's a very it's a flat grind, but there's a huge surface area, so that flat grind is spread along a large piece of steel, and what you end up getting with this kind of curved shape, nice edge and large face is what I imagine to be a great slicer. And so I would say that this knife is actually remarkably suited for food prep, which you would look at it with all the holes and everything and be like, I don't want to get that anywhere near something as gunky as food. But if you were going to cut up some vegetables or like a potato or something, this thing would be sweet. I think it would do a great job. I will say that the knife is really well suited to like a pinch grip with your index finger up here. Like this just, I mean, it has the edge, curved edge that you can use to kind of roll your cuts like this. Try not to slice my whole finger open. So it definitely would make a great knife for food prep. This has a really good feel in the hand. There's this kind of swoop here that gives space for your finger to rest. And just overall, it's got great ergonomics. Your thumb kind of sinks right into this hole here. And kind of this whole crazy, like, weird, twisted, contorted, mechanical design suddenly becomes super organic when you actually hold the knife like this. It all kind of comes together and really just makes you want to slice an apple in half. But moving on from that, the lock bar is a little bit too strong for my taste. It takes a lot of effort to kind of get out of the way there, and it's fairly thin. They've done this cutaway. See if I can get the proper light there. They've done this cutaway, which is super nice for getting your thumb in there, except if you see, it makes this incredibly thin, like thinner than the thinnest part of the spine of the blade. And so when you do this a few times, coupled with the fact that the pressure or force required to disengage this lock bar is very high compared to some of the other flippers that I have. If you compare it to the Sequoia, actually, the Sequoia, I'm just, it's like all day long. I can push that out of the way. Not a problem. Not hard at all. This one, not so much. This one, it really takes some forethought and some effort. And so with such a thin little piece here, that becomes a hot spot real quick. I don't see the little divot in my thumb there. I don't know. It's a little tough. But it becomes a hot spot real quick for just sitting here and playing with the knife. The centering on this knife is a little off. It has been carried, but it hasn't been carried a lot. And so when I asked Sid about it, he just said that the centering was something that he would mark as kind of like an issue. But I guess I forgot to ask if he would specify whether or not the knife came like that. But so the centering is slightly off, but not anywhere near off enough to be concerned about contact or anything like that. So that's not really an issue. When I first pulled this out, I was looking at it, and this tab here is the same exact design as the flipper tab. It's the same shape, it's the same size, it has jimping in the same place, and it's angled so that I expected this to be a front flipper if I wanted it to be. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody sent me a video of somebody successfully using this as a front flipper repeatedly. I'm sure there's some guy out there who sat there long enough to figure it out. But it, for all intents and purposes, for a normal user, is not a front flipper and is another extraordinarily deceptive I'm so sorry, is another deceptive part of the Decepticon. So for one, if you're putting pressure on the area here, on the jimping, your other finger naturally is right behind this flipper tab. So no matter how much pressure you put this way, it's just going to push into your finger and it's not going to go anywhere. If you choke down on the knife, I mean, I have small hands, but still, I'm not anywhere close to being able to even reach that if I choke down just enough to allow for the flipper tab to slide through. So you're not going to get that. And then if you try to really get like weird with it and like hold it like in here, then you're just not, you don't have anywhere near enough leverage on the knife to be able to actually force it out of the detent. It's pretty strong detent, especially with the pressure coming from that lock bar, and so the whole front flipper thing is not happening. What I realized is that it's actually the jimping on the spine of the tang. So that's great. That's actually where I want the jimping to be. It provides a little less contact because you can see here, if you look at the exact profile of the knife, the jimping is actually inside the scope of these two liners or the frame. So you get the jimping if you kind of bear down on it with the tip of your thumb, and you're looking for it. But if you just kind of like place your thumb there, it's not really doing much. Your thumb kind of slides around because it rides on the rails of the frame. One thing that I will say about this knife is you can't fuck up deployment. You just can't. It doesn't matter how kind of slippy you get on that flipper tab. It's going to come out every single time. I've tried repeatedly. Let's see, perfectly vertical. No, comes out every time. You know, vertical is kind of the way to tell because that's when gravity is working against you the most. And there's no chance that this thing is not going to come to 100% lockup every single time you flip it. So that's great, but at $1,000, I really wouldn't expect anything less. Now, I think this knife has a great size. The Decepticon 3 specifically is the smallest of the 3 Decepticons, but they're all still over the 9-inch mark, or right thereabouts. I really like the size of this knife, and it's a great fit for me in the saber grip, but my pinky is right up on this edge, this curved edge, which does come to a fairly sharp point. This feels like a point, not a ridge. So it's definitely a point. And my hand just fits in there, and I bet a medium glove is right on there. Well, I guess I'm a medium glove. I should say a large glove. A large glove is probably right on there, but a bigger large glove or an extra large glove might want to go for one of the bigger Decepticons because this is kind of a design flaw once you get into that bigger hand space because you'd have your pinky just like right on these. I mean, this hurts. You don't want to do that at all. So maybe stick to a couple of the older Decepticons if you have bigger hands. There are a couple of lanyard holes. You have this one in the backspacer itself, which Sid tells me the designer Konigan is on his Instagram page. That's actually where he puts his lanyard on his Decepticon. And then there's actually a designated lanyard hole. Kind of hard to see, actually, because the whole knife's black. But there's a designated lanyard hole that you can get to if you were to disassemble the knife. The knife doesn't have, it has proprietary pivots, but of course you could just use a flathead screwdriver. They're just slightly off center. That said, I didn't want to see if I could fix the centering because I don't want to be taking tools to someone else's knife. I am not Nick Shabazz. I am not a professional knife disassembler. And I don't want to leave tool marks on somebody's car payment. I cannot get over how much this knife is for what you get. And I think that's just because I'm not a fan of the design language. And so to me, it's not worth $1,000 in the same way that, my Olamic Compact isn't worth $850 to somebody that really doesn't like carbon fiber. So that's completely fair and completely justified. I can see why other people would want to spend $1,000 on this. The crazy milled out design that you have going on is just superb. The blade that you're getting on this is maybe the single best blade between both use and design that I've really ever come in contact with. Now, I don't have a ton of experience with hundreds of knives, but, I think this blade is absolutely fantastic. I would love to have this blade on one of my knives that I actually plan on using for sure. So between the action and everything like that, this knife definitely deserves its place in the knife world. It does completely drop shut. It's absolutely gorgeous in that way. Everything about it is so super smooth. Like I said before, incredibly solid, and that's something that I really like about it. It does have this Damascus clip. When I asked Sid about it, he said that it was actually just listed as a Damascus clip, and I'm almost feeling like it's regular titanium that's been flame anodized with like I don't know. There's a lot of that faux Damascus going around right now. It's really hard to say what is real Damascus and what isn't. Though, if you look at the side profile like you do, it does look like it's genuine. It does seem fairly layered. So I'm going to call that Damascus. I think that's what it is. But some of the anodization is getting faded away as this pocket clip from wear has started to creep down. But that's normal for any knife that is loved and carried as much as I'm sure this one is. And the real last thing I'll say about this knife is I'm struggling to decide whether or not I feel it's a frame lock or a liner lock. Now, I know I could just Google it, but that's boring, and so I'm not going to do that. If you were to get rid of these silver parts, this would just be a frame lock knife. I mean, it's cut out like a frame lock, it works like a frame lock, it's designed like a frame lock, and then it's just got these two pieces of metal, you know, bolted on. So I don't know if you'd call these scales, considering they're all cut out. I don't know if you'd think of this as all one singular frame with a crazy design. You can think of it however you want, but the way I like to think of it is, you know, it's like one of those, like frame lock or liner lock, you decide. I think that's like way more fun to see like what people have to say about it and what kind of weird arguments people would want to have. So leave a comment down below about whether or not you think this knife should be classified as a frame lock or a liner lock. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Thanks so much for tuning in. This has been the first edition of Lovely Loners. There's definitely more to come. If you guys like this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see you next time.